So, okay, let's start. I think now, Lisbeth, I don't see you, but I see that you are connected. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to Lisbeth Rebolo, the President of AICA International, and to AICA Academy participants, and to the wider audience who is here today to share the issues and topics and the discussion we had during this first AICA Academy. Just well, I'm Mathilde Roman. I'm treasurer of AICA International, and I was in charge of this program, which were launched in 2020 first by Marc Partouche and myself in Paris La Sorbonne, and stopped because of the pandemic. And we decided last year to relaunch the program AICA Academy in a new version, which is then a new kind of program. And this AICA Academy was combined with the Congress we had in Krakow. It was the 53rd Congress. For those who don't know, we have an annual Congress it's a very important part of our activity. AICA International, and each Congress is organized by a different national section every year. So this year it was organized in Krakow, and we decided with a police section to organize also the AICA Academy conjointly, with the idea that we try to be more inclusive for the audience who attend the congresses and take part to our activities, and to offer unique occasions to members and young art critics from all over different parts of the world to be welcomed and to be included in our activities. So we made a call for participations. We had a very interesting proposals from different members and non-members, because I have to also to focus that was also something important, that we decided that this session was not only for AICA members, but also for non-AICA members and for any person interested in writing about art, writing with art, in any extending way of combining writings and art. So it was a very inclusive and session, and also we finally selected 10 participants, and the 10 participants were welcomed in the House of Empathy, which was a specific place in Krakow, and they took part of a different days and program of a Congress, but they also had a first session altogether where they decided to focus on specific issues that they are concerned with, related to this question about writing and art, and also about the position of art critics today. So these issues, we come back to these issues during this webinar. The idea of this webinar is to share the thoughts, the concerns, and also to continue in a very collective way to discuss some very important issues for everyone, I think, today, because I decided to focus on very important issues, like what motivates us to write about art. How do we live as an art critics today? How do we face the precarity which is common to anyone working in the art field? And how do we deal with the issues of language, as we will all speak English today, like we did during the Congress in Krakow, but we all write in a very specific language, depending in different part of the world where we live in. So that's also very important issues of language and identity, and how we relate to these issues in the international and globalized context of art today. So I will be happy to introduce you to the program for today. We'll have 5 interventions. The first one will be by Lucy Hartford, which is an intervention following a article published online. I see that you share the link on the conversation, Lucy. Thank you. It's learning from the AICA Inaugural Academy. Then we'll have proposal of communication made by 3 different members of AICA Academy: Eli Leventaki, Mary Michaelian, and Omar Mirza. Then about these thoughts on precarity in art-related labor. Then communication by Lucky Kneva, a few thoughts on language. Then Anthony Huffman, recurring encounters with institutional critique. And finally, we conclude with Aliza Redko, Art and Belonging, Nowadays Challenges. Okay, so first I will introduce quickly Lucy Hartford. Lucy Hartford is an art writer, artist, and researcher based in Nipaluna, Hobart. She holds a PhD in art theory, and she works as a project archivist at UTAS and teaches information studies at Charles Sturt University. And she has previously taught also art theory at the same university. And she worked in the library at Mona. And she is actively writing in different public art journals like Artist Profile, Retime, Artlink, Art Monthly, and Australia Asia. So thank you very much, Lucy, for being here today. And I give you you can start with your first thought about these AICA Academy sessions, and following this publication you shared with us yesterday, which was very interesting, and thank you for that.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I guess as a writer, I thought I'd write down what put it in words in print rather than speak. but yeah, so in the chat you can see the article. Hopefully it doesn't I think there's usually the paywall goes up after 7 days, I think, so get in quick. The journal, the magazine, they don't like they didn't want me to use the word I, so it is a bit of a kind of sort of hovering overview. As the one of the things that happened on day 1 of the Academy was we sort of split into 3 groups, sort of pursuing 3 themes. And so I was in the group sort of investigating the motivations for writing about art, which are sort of great interest to me. So in my article, I tried to kind of represent what I'd heard and seen from my fellow participants in the other groups, as represented in the Instagram. So I hope I've represented everyone fairly. As if you read the article, most of the comments are most of it is about the motivation for why do you write about art, because that was the group that I was in, and that all stemmed from, with the exception of 2. One was an Instagram comment, and another was a comment in a presentation. But all of those stemmed from conversations that I had with attendees of the Congress, and that was very valuable. I mean, my motivation for applying for the Academy was really this sort of question of what happens when an entire state you know, your home state no longer offers training in art theory, in art writing, in art criticism. There is no training for younger writers. And I get asked by editors a lot, you know, do you know of any emerging writers? And, you know, it's very hard to say, to know what to say, you know, you can't identify them. But yeah, what I realized going in was that when I spoke to all these people, when I spoke to all these other writers over the course of the week, it made me realize that I speak to a lot of artists in my job. I write a lot of artist profiles, and I interview a lot of people, but I very rarely speak to other writers. And I think that's, you know, I live in a fairly small area, so I do know I do know other writers, but I've never sort of asked them about their practice or, you know, what drives them in the same way that I have artists. So it was just really interesting. Because particularly as I've personally been finding writing a little bit tricky lately. It's I don't know, I overthink it maybe. And so, you know, when I spoke to there was one art historian critic, Anna Lucia Beck, whose response to what motivates you to write art was, she said, "I'm a masochist," and I was like, "Oh God, I know that." And it was sort of nice to hear that other people also find writing quite difficult, even if it is incredibly rewarding. It's sort of, sometimes it's like pulling teeth. You know, others were a little bit, I got some cynical responses. So Stephen Schmidt-Wolf said I stopped because, you know, you don't make any money, and you younger people, you know, you can write, but then, you know, other people get, you know, you get promoted and you start curating and you stop writing. And I thought, and one of the things that when I was writing up this article that I realized that I didn't do was survey to speak to actually the other Academy participants really about why they made art. And I think that's probably a gap that like I think I would have liked filled. And I was kind of a bit reluctant to email everyone because I think the emailed responses aren't quite as quick, aren't quite as, they're more considered. And you know, you miss that sort of discussion. But yeah, I do think that it's a shame that I didn't get sort of younger generations' responses to what motivates you to write about art, because I think actually that would probably, the responses would probably be quite different. And I know that from you know, the other Academy participants in my group, you know, Jacob mentioned it was a sort of rebellion in a way, which was very interesting. But I didn't quite get the quote. So yeah. Yeah. But so yeah, that's a sort of,
thank you. I think yes, one of the main ideas with this AICA Academy was to allow different generations of art critics to meet directly, because as you mentioned, most of the audience and most of the people involved in AICA congresses for years we done a lot of big inclusivity in terms of young art critics. So that was also the idea of bringing you, the AICA Academy participants, in the Congress. And we were very happy that you had so many discussions in between you, but also with different generations, because I think we all bring different perspective, and we have a lot to learn from each other. And so that's why also your quotes in your article are very valuable, because they give a lot of insights for everyone to think about our own motivations, and also about what the reality of art criticism today. So I don't know if anyone wants to pick up a floor and to just address a comment, or maybe one of also a younger generation of art critics who are here and who didn't have time to answer to this question of motivations and want to do it like this in a very instinctive way. Could be also interesting. Yeah, Liam.
Yeah, just a few short remarks. I think over the years, the critics that I have admired were those that could draw the reader into the critical enterprise, which may be conversational at times, draw them in more as an active participant than a passive receiver of handed down knowledge. And I think the critical task, I think generally, or at least one of the critical tasks, is to raise appropriate questions without leading the reader or the viewer to an overarching prescribed point of view. I think the good critic tends to allow adequate wriggle room for the reader to confide in their own sense of what is put before them. Such writing then allows for purposeful ambiguity. So those are just a few little remarks about art writing in general. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I'm Kelly from AICA Ireland. I think anyone speaking should just address his name, her name, just as an introduction, because sometimes names are not in your Zoom account. Anyone wants to continue on this, or shall we move on? Yeah, I think so. Okay, then. Maybe we'll move on. This second group of discussions during the AICA Academy was about this question of precarity in art-related labor, and we had a very active group with 3 different participants. And one of the things also was that we decided to involve also not only AICA Academy participants who answer to the call for participations, but also to involve different kind of AICA international active members. So we have a group formed with Eli Leventaki, with an art historian, curator, art researcher based in Athens. And she's actually currently a PhD candidate in Department of Theory and History of Art of the Athens School of Fine Arts. And we have also Mary Mikhaelian, who is an artist, curator from Armenia, currently studying at the Academy of Fine Arts, Media Art, in Cologne, in Germany. And she's a founder of a platform, Art Basis, where you gather books about art, theory, philosophy, work about also the different promoting contemporary art in Armenia. And we also have in this group of discussion Omar Mirza, who is curator, art critics from very active in the AICA Slovakia. And you gave a very engaging spin on your position as a curator in the Slovakian art context during the Congress in Krakow. So this group is also interesting because you have 3 very different kind of position as art critics, artists, writing, and curator, using also maybe writing and art criticism as part of your activities. So that's also what maybe keep first. I think it was important as an introduction, because that's also the idea with this AICA Academy, to have this kind of diversity that is also the reality of how we all practice art criticism today. You can share anything if you wish. Normally, it's if I've done it well, you can also use the screen if you want to share anything, because I know that you worked on some graphic designs also that you made during the Congress.
And about this working group. So I think maybe we can start with Omar sharing the graphic designs. He's the expert in this. And then maybe we can just walk people through like how this group started and what was the purpose, or how we worked also as a team during the Congress, and then also reflect a bit on our findings. Just to say that there are some of these findings also available at the AICA Instagram account, but also now there's been like an overview of the entire outcome that we can share today with Omar. So if you want to do it this way and just share the findings first, and then just
I think, Ellie, maybe you could start by introducing the group and how we worked, and then we can share the visuals.
Okay, sure. I can do that as well. Okay, so as was said before, during the AICA Academy, we started by talking about what is troubling us, what we have in mind, what we need. So apart from the subjects of writing and language, the issue of labor came on the table a lot. Like, many people were discussing how they get paid, which jobs do they do, how precarious is this field actually, and it sort of became a recurring theme in different countries and parts of the world. So since this was a recurring issue for many people, we decided to form a group to actually talk about it and maybe see what we can do during the Congress, like if there was any action or, let's say, research that we can do and take advantage of all of these days of all of us being together in one place. So along with Mary and Omar, what we decided was to sort of do a mapping of what are the paid jobs of the speakers of the Congress. So not just the jobs that we do that do not necessarily have a payment, but only the paid jobs, which are very different from the many of the jobs that we do in general. So what we did every day, we were tracking the speakers of the Congress, and we went there and would talk to them and trying to understand how they get by, which are the jobs that back. Because as it was also mentioned before, also in Lucy's article, I think that some people were so discouraged by not getting paid from writing that even gave it up. So it was very interesting what we could find, and how people would hold more than one job in order to be able to make a living. Like you will also see in the numbers that we have, like, if there are 10 speakers, let's say, we would write down 20 jobs or even more. So it's indicative that people were at least doing 2 jobs in order to get by, not just one. In some cases, things could be more stable, let's say in cases of more academic positions. But this was also documented, but I don't think it was the majority. So what we did after each day, we would try to create this chart based on these jobs that we would document and post it at the end of the day. And today we have also these charts created during the Congress, but also the final chart, which summarizes all the jobs that we documented throughout the Congress from all the speakers that we could talk to. And I think also this is an idea that we would like also to maybe expand, if possible, maybe also in other congresses or throughout AICA members. I don't know, we have many ideas. I don't want to take too much time. I think this is a brief introduction, and Omar or Mary, I don't know who wants to continue.
Yeah, before I show you the results of every day and then the whole picture, maybe Mary, you want to add something before? Or
I think you can share.
Okay, yeah. I try to share the screen now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So as Ellie said, every day we asked not all the speakers of the day, but the ones that we could just manage to ask. Some were not present, some just left early. So every day we asked a group of the speakers about their paid jobs. And these are the results of every day. So day one, we asked 6 speakers, and there were like 19 jobs overall, from which were 12 unique ones, because there's always some of the jobs that were repeating. And it's also interesting to see in the final graph, like how many people have the same jobs, or what jobs are the most frequent ones. So here is what I did just to sum up to the results. I made a table with these, it's in alphabetical order, and this is the graph or the chart from the first day, so you can see how many people are, what kind of jobs they were doing. And it's also interesting to see that some of the jobs, and maybe later you will see it more, are not really related to art. But on the first day, there was maybe only one job, like gallery guard, which is not really, it is related to art, but it is not really in this sense of being a curator, a writer, or something. So from day 2, we asked 7 speakers, and we had 21 jobs overall, from which were 11 unique ones. So we had a lot of writers on that day, a lot of university teachers or professors. We combined this together because sometimes it's just the position is university professor, but sometimes it's a university, some other position at a university, but we combined it, and we tried to make the job positions as simple as we could. So just artist or curator or art critic and so on. We had also on this day one office manager, or a person who did this, who had to do or has to do this job just to get paid. So this is the chart from the second day, and you can also see that, as I said, most of the jobs were writers or university professors. Day 3, we had 9 speakers and 15 jobs overall, but there were only 5 unique jobs. So a lot of people shared the jobs of, or the professions or the occupations of being curators, again, university teachers or professors, and writers. And this is the chart from the third day. And this is the last day. And here you see a lot of quite interesting jobs like grill master or wine merchant. Again, university teachers and professors are the most frequent ones. And this is the chart from the last day of the Congress. Even sports events manager and so on. Okay, and this is the final table, the overall results of our little survey. We asked 30 people or 30 speakers at the Congress, and we found out they have 73 jobs overall, and there were 26 unique jobs. And this is the final table, and as you can see, most of the jobs were university teachers and professors. Wait, I have to, yeah. And also curators. Maybe maybe later I can do like top 5 jobs or something like that. Well, but you see, right? Most of the people are writers, university teachers, curators. but only 4 art critics, which is very interesting that we are the International Association of Art Critics, but only 4 people from 30 are being paid to be art critics. So this is the final graph, or the chart, pie chart. And it is interesting to see that maybe most of the people are have academic positions at universities. And this is something that is maybe interesting also to work on in the future. And this is also what Ellie proposed, and maybe we can all just decide if we want to do it, just make a big survey from all the AICA members and see what kind of jobs do we have, or what kind of jobs we have to do. And maybe later we can develop this data, because this is just what we collected. We just collected some data, but we didn't elaborate or work with it in any way. So maybe this is an opportunity, this meeting, this webinar, just to talk what we can do with this data and what can we analyze further. Okay, so I will stop sharing the screen.
Thank you very much. In fact, it's really related to the cartography we started doing the last 2 years, where we try to analyze the situation of art criticism and AICA International different national sections in different parts of the world. And indeed, it's very interesting to see that, as you say, to consider earning our life from art criticism is very rare today. When you go back to in the 60s, when you listen to artists to what the occasions to write, to collaborate with art journals, the motivation at that time was to earn some monies and to have a way to have some economy through writing. So it's a real invention today, where, as also Lucy mentioned, the motivations to write is never to earn money, not at all, at least not to write with art or in the art world. It's in different kind of motivations, because it's a situation when in most of different countries, art criticism is very badly paid, when not paid at all. I don't know if anyone wants to react to. Yes, Christian?
Thank you for the survey. I think it was extremely interesting. Thank you for this hard job. I think my conclusion is that, and I have thought of that for many years, as art criticism is on the margin. I think that AICA should do more to promote and help art criticism in congresses and overall in different ways. And also, as the AICA Academy, you are analyzing the role of art criticism. I think it should also be done in the main Congress, in future congresses, as there is still a crisis for art criticism, as we discussed many years ago. So I think we have to continue on that road and find how to help criticism in different ways, intellectual, concerning jobs, etc. I think I know that the situation is quite different in different parts of the world. In some countries there are no paid critics at all, but in other Western countries there are not so many, but anyhow there are paid critics.
Thank you, Christian. I think Emmanuel, you raise your hand first.
Yes. Hello, everybody. So I'm Emmanuel Lambion from AICA Belgium. Thank you very much for this survey. What is striking is indeed that so we have overall, and there is already a bias in as much as like the person who were speakers had already reached a stage in the development of their careers. But yeah, if I note that you interviewed 30 people, you had 73 different jobs. So it means that in average, everybody had 2.5 jobs, you know, and after some years of development of their activity as art worker, art critic, and so on. What I would find interesting, reacting to the remark made by Mathilde, would possibly to try and investigate why over the past years, you know, just like art criticism seems to be a less and less profitable way of a sustainable way of earning one's money. And of course, into consideration, I think that we must be aware that, you know, if 20 or 30 years ago, maybe the written support in art newspapers was the only way of promoting an artistic production, we all know that now it's not any longer the case, huh? Just whether it be like the social media and so on, and it can be done in a very independent way by the artists themselves or the other intermédiaires, the galleries and so on. Besides also the traveling, you know, we're in this globalized world where everybody, you know, just travels much more than before. And again, so there are more opportunities of direct contact for the exchange and promotion of art than before, just like two tracks. But I think it would be interesting to try and understand how, you know, people have lived this shift in the importance of writing about art to promote art, to make it known and so on. Well, that's just
yeah, thank you. I think that's both of your questions are the same, that we have to continue on these issues. Like, I mean, this question of economic crisis was already in past congresses, but this survey maybe gives new insights that we have to follow up. And as also Pascal Chris says in the chat, we will also follow up for AICA Internationals. I was mentioning this cartography, and we'd like to collaborate with this group of 3 AICA Academy participants to continue this survey and to extend it on different on all those sections and not only on speakers, because of course it's a lot of very interesting for our associations, and maybe we have to be more also I don't know, to try to invert the reality, even if it's not so easy, but at least to be try to find to be more impactful with our things. Well, I will give you the floor now to Lucy. I think she raised her hand first. Lucy, we don't hear you.
Sorry, I was just looking for the unmute button. I guess just an observation, like if the premise of the AICA Academy was like that there are fewer training opportunities for well, there are fewer courses being offered on art criticism and art writing around the world, and so if art criticism is being propped up by art by academic positions, that sort of seems like there's a you know, fewer academic positions. It's even more important to pay people to write about art, because you know, I used to teach art theory. No more. I don't have any there isn't any institutional drive to publish and you know, earn research points. You know, I'm not being paid to research in a university, and so any art writing I do actually has to either be subsidized elsewhere or have, you know, be paid by the publication. And yeah, so like if we're losing courses around the world, we're also going to lose art critics unless there's better pay. Just an observation.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello?
Oh yeah, yes. Okay. Steven, yeah, okay. Steven Cusat.
Yes, Simone, can I? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, I'm Simone. It's my first time joining you, and I found this to be very interesting, and it resonated with me, first of all, because I had a career as a freelance art critic in Los Angeles for many years, and my sort of career ended in a way because I didn't get a green card based on the fact that I could not live solely from art criticism. And it shows, your study, your survey showed that most people are in the same position, and for them, they would not have been able to get a green card. And I lived in the United States for a total of 24 years, and my green card was rejected. And because of that, I had to relocate back to Europe, and I came here just before the pandemic. And I'm just running a blog, and I'm not getting paid for it. And I've been doing different jobs. I've been teaching German and English, and working with children and adult students. So I'm doing different things to survive. And my last experience was really a disappointing experience, because someone approached me on LinkedIn, where I have a profile, and he asked me to do several interviews of his artists, of his gallery, and I ended up not getting paid for the project. And so I did 7 artist interviews, and I'm not getting paid for it because it appeared on my blog. And so it was very interesting, your survey, and I just wanted to let you know that it can even end up, being the case that you have to relocate to another country because you can't make a living as an art critic, as a paid art critic.
Thank you very much. Maybe Heli, and then we. Yeah.
Just a few clarifications about the survey. So I think also someone mentioned it before, like the choice of speakers was done like based on the career stage. So we thought, okay, let's focus on the speakers. During the Congress, just for the time's sake, we could not interview everyone. And also based on the thought that, okay, if you're speaking in an AICA Congress, I mean, okay, you are in a good stage maybe in your career. So of course, we would like to extend this further in more AICA members or people in different countries. And I'm thinking also about the term writer and art critic. I think also some of the interviewees maybe were more comfortable identifying themselves as writers, but not as art critics, which also I think is indicative. Like maybe they feel that the job they do is more of a writer, so they did not say I'm an art critic, and they said writer, so we wrote down writer. So maybe this type of identification is also interesting, how people feel that maybe art criticism is not really a job, maybe my writing in general is a paid job or something like that. So I'm also coming from a country where no one is paid to write art criticism, and I just wanted to say that also for me this was I don't know, it gave me sort of a sense of belonging, that also people in other countries have similar issues maybe as the one I thought I had only myself. So this I think also helped me this sense of belonging with other people from different countries and not feeling alone in this precarious situation. Yeah.
Thank you, Liam. Yes, last questions, and then we have comments, then we have to move on.
Yeah, just a very brief comment. First of all, I thought the survey was well worthwhile doing it. It was very purposeful, although it confirmed what I already know, I think, in my case. Someone once said that there's no poetry in money, and there's no money in poetry. And that could equally apply to art criticism and, in the wider sense, to art writing. I'm a member also of the College Art Association in the States, and they are a much more wealthy organization than we are. They have a huge membership, and it extends to art historians as well as art critics, as well as to artists. And they, as part of their work, they provide more professional support for their members, extending to legal advice, but also to do with the way they should be paid. And it might be worth considering that we maybe put something on our website to do with how much critics should be paid in what categories of work, as a way of prompting those who commission articles from newspapers and journals and so forth to start thinking about the level of payment
I'm sorry, I
Thank
want
you.
to, but I don't have the hand to. So when you decide I want to say something about, you tell me if this is possible. Sorry.
Okay.
You have the hand to
Who is
show.
speaking now?
Susanna Zulik.
Okay, okay, Susanna. But just, I'm sorry, but I think we have to move on because we have a very intense program, and we can go back to these issues later at the end of a communications. And of course, that's it's very important, and that what we see is that we all want to encourage this survey and to encourage also maybe international
Okay,
to
but
continue on these issues. Yeah, let's move on,
me
please,
on the
because I think we.
list
Yeah.
speak.
So okay, I will give the floor now to Neva Lukic. Yeah, you here, Neva. You are part of the Croatian section of AICA International. You are a writer, curator, and art critics. You're from Zagreb, but you are now based in Belgrade, and you have been living in very different cities, which is also interesting, related to what we mentioned, the different contexts that where we are based are very influential in our way of course, of thinking and writing and living, and how we survive. So you were part of this group of academy concerned about issues about language. So you will share a few thoughts about on language.
Thank you. Yes, I was part of the group which dealt with topic of language and identity. And I just picked some things which we talked about during the symposium. And I just put some ideas in this text, but it's not really elaborated. So I'm happy to hear your thoughts on it. Few thoughts on language. In the story of Tower of Babel, the Lord confused the language of all the earth, because while united in one language, people were one people. They were able to communicate and to build all city and the tower. The Lord said that this is only the beginning of what people will do. Nothing will be impossible for them. So he made them not to understand each other's speech and scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. Today we are aiming to be united in English, but there is also ambiguity related to that. As a global language, English unites us as humans. Owing to English, we are able to speak to each other now. Without English, our virtual, global Tower of Babel wouldn't be able to function. But still, in addition to English, other languages still exist, our mother tongues. We, who are non-native speakers of English, are not able to express ourselves in English as good as a native speaker. As Hannah Arendt claims, the meaningfulness we experience in our mother tongue is disclosive of the most fundamental features of human existence. But still, if I would start speaking Croatian in front of the audience, nobody would understand me. By not learning English and speaking only Croatian, to foreigners I become almost an autistic being, a woman animal. For other nations, my mother tongue is just sounds. Nobody knows what I want to say or what I need. A bit like in a humoristic work, Interview with a Cat, where a poet, visual artist, and filmmaker, Marcel Broders, interviewed the cat about the nature of art. The cat responds with just meow, which among other things expresses artist's point of view about impossibility of communication and answering questions about art. So within the international art world, my language becomes a meow of a cat or woo-hoo of a dog barking in the street. In addition, if I want to speak English, I have to adapt all my language apparatus to English words, and that almost feels like violating my tongue or jaws. Here I can recall two artworks. The first one is the performance of Wally Expert, which actually we could see on display in Museum of Contemporary Art, Krakow, in a form of video work. The name of the performance is The Voice as Performance, Act and a Body, and it was made in 2007. And in it, the artist recorded the vocal folds of her throat while she was speaking. The camera was inserted through the nose to show the physicality and the anatomy of the language, which we are not aware of sometimes because the language invisibly happens in the interiors of our bodies. The second work is a documentary essay film by The Throat by artists Effie and Amir from 2021. They also deal with anatomical limits created by our mother tongue, meaning that our mother tongue is always looming below whichever language we speak, and it can be used by others as an identifier. Others can recognize where we come from or what kind of background we have. And the film refers to another biblical story, the story of Shibboleth, where 40,000 fighters are slaughtered after a slight difference in the way they pronounced this word, and that revealed their identity. Quote, then said they unto him, say now Shibboleth, and he said Sibboleth, for he could not frame to pronounce it right. Then they took him and slew him at the passages of Jordan. Here the language becomes ideological means of oppressive categorization by its anatomical features, since we cannot pronounce the word in a correct way owing to the anatomical predispositions formed by our mother tongues. On the other hand, language also reveals its ideological means by its semantic side. Unfortunately, that happens all over the world. The war of words happens parallel with the physical war. Currently in Ukraine, the program of derussification is being conducted, the museums and streets are being renamed, and Russian words expelled from the language, what we saw in the lecture of Nikita Kadan. In Croatia, after the civil war in the 90s, a similar scenario happened. Serbian words were expelled from the language, what meant also the words with Latin or Russian origin. In 2012, curatorial team What, How, and For Whom organized the exhibition Action Written Offs, which visualized the long-term research work of this collective and was dedicated to the problem of destruction of several hundreds books in Croatia in the 90s, which were from Serbian authors written in Cyrillic letters or just being written in Serbian language. The art collective collected documentary materials. Written off books were scanned and digitized, and artists performed different performances that revived memories of burning and throwing books. For example, artist Siniša Labrović, in his performance, The Light of the Book, set the book on fire in his hands. The mentioned act of destruction of books can be seen as a materialization of practice of cleaning of the language from words, from Russianisms, Serbianisms, thus meaning from synonyms. Synonyms are being abolished and the language is impoverished, which is the result of the political violence against it. In this short text, I wanted to detect two perspectives on how the language expresses its ideological means through its anatomical features when we speak the language of other, like I'm speaking now, and its semantic features when our mother tongues are being purified from foreign words owing to war conflicts. Seems that on whichever side we turn, there is some kind of trap which manifests itself by a categorization of human being. Here I can recall also Derrida and his lecture, The Text Monolingualism of the Other, because Derrida was an Algerian French who did not speak Arabic, but felt affection for the French language, which constantly reminded him that he was not French and that France was not his home and that his mother tongue was a myth. Therefore, he claims that although he was assigned one language, French, he will never be able to master it. So he suggests that we should not be fooled by the purism of our primary language and instead consider possibilities that can emerge from so-called linguistic exile. We should remain open to the exteriority of language through the constant task of translation in which we are always engaged, even in the language closest to us. Thank you.
Excuse me, sorry, I was speaking just for myself. Thank you very much, Neva, and I was proposing Liam to take the floor, to take part of the discussion as you raised your hand and you were also involved in these discussions during AICA Academy about language.
Sorry, I inadvertently put up my hand. It's okay.
Okay. If anyone else wants to.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Isn't want to add any comment? It reminds me that we had a lot of discussions about also during the Congress about, of course, when you are speaking a language that which has, like you say, if you speak Russian, no one of us would understand. It's also a big responsibility for you to decide if you write in Russian or if you only write in English, because of course, if you write in English, you have a wider audience in the art world, and it's also interesting for our artists. But it also means that you don't participate also to the intellectual for your own country and own language. You don't feed your own territory and your own language. So, which is also something it's a big issue, and I think, and we also had this discussion with Alisa also, but with your situation as a Ukrainian art critic based now in New York. So I think I don't know if you want to add something about this issue of responsibility.
Yes, I think it's for all of us for whom our mother tongue is not English, so it's different perspective. But I also wanted to show how actually also through anatomical features, language exposes what we are, and it reveals who we are. So from one side, there is this semantic problem, what happened in Croatia and is happening now in Ukraine, that you're purifying the language, and from another side, there is this anatomical feature that each of us can recognize where we come from while we are speaking English, for example.
Emmanuel, you raise your hand. Emmanuel Lambion from AICA Belgium. We don't hear you.
Okay, you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Neva, for these all these tracks and so on. Yeah, I think the question of language was also present in the just like the organizational discussion we had within AICA as an organization. Just like one of our members reminded us that we had like 3 official languages, and in particular in relationship with the relationship with UNESCO, that French should stay and so on. So we're speaking about hegemonic languages. Now we are all generations that have known English as an hegemonic language, but maybe the future art critics of the 21st century will have a different hegemonic language. So, but by then will have disappeared. French was in the past century very hegemonic in terms of critic and art writing and. And one of the advantages of French, it was said that it was a very ambiguous language. And here I'm a bit bouncing on your idea that one loses a bit of precision when we use other language, the common language, let's say English. But sometimes it's good, actually, I would say, to lose a bit of precision, and especially maybe not contracts and varied things that we have to be very, very precise, but maybe sometimes art, because we're just like dealing and writing about something that has or foster infralinguistic poetry or metaphoric discourse, art, visual arts, then sometimes it's like kind of interesting to lose a bit like the too overdetermined precision of your own native language. That's a track in this kind of perspective. For me, for instance, it's a subject that interests me a lot, but I like very much what it was based on a series of projects that I did, in the last decade. They were called Found in Translation. And Found in Translation, the film by Sofia Coppola, Lost in Translation, and so on. But to me, what I find most resonant in art practices now is the kind of topos of displacing. A lot of the contemporary researchers are about displacing, whether it be our references to formal tradition, to techniques, to the context of production, to the context of reception. And by this displacement, you open up interstitial gap where the core of the artwork lies. And translation, it's not just like a translation, like linguistic translation and so on, which is a kind of recreation of a text, of everything and so on, as we all know. But beyond, translation, it comes from Latin, and it's transfero, translatum. So it's bringing beyond, creating this gap and opening up this new space for interpretation and free interpretation. So just it's taking a bit the reverse of this the stance of having per se to be extremely precise in the comment, the critics that we make on an artwork. Sometimes, just it's interesting also more to open up and to leave and to find a space of liberty, of indetermination, of ambiguity.
Thank you. Thank you, Emmanuel. I think we have to move on. Liam, I've seen your hands, but I want to give the floor to Anthony first because time is flying. Anthony Huffman, who is art critics based in New York, working with different art journals like Book and Ray, Art Monthly, and you are also a researcher for Sophie Gray. And you also worked on Prix de Chavannes and institutional critique, very different subjects and speaking in different languages also. So I don't know if you want to take the floor now and to give us.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Mathilde and Liam and Emmanuel and the rest of the leadership of AICA International for organizing resurrecting the Academy. I'll try and be brief and connect to what Lucy was speaking about and others about the precarity of the work we do, what it means to write now as a young critic and navigate the different challenges we face, and also to speak a bit to Neva's point about the I'm very interested in how ideologies manifest and how they're articulated by the powers that be. And so when reflecting on the Congress, I wanted to take this autobiographical journey through the lens of institutional critique, which was reanimated or this interest was reignited because there were so many amazing talks across the 5 days of the Congress that had to do with the legacy and history of institutional critique, which now spans almost 50 years in various ways as this method of which we are all by virtue on this call we're implicated in this social field of what we call the art world, for lack of a better phrasing. So it'll be a rapid fire intellectual lineage or journey through how I became interested in the topic because I very much grew up wanting to be a lawyer. I grew up in a very rural part of the United States in the South in Kentucky, where I did not grow up going to museums or much exposure to what cultural criticism was or what art history was. It wasn't until I went to university and I went to a liberal arts college where I was exposed to a lot of amazing professors and took humanities courses. And so I have a picture here from very well famous documentation of the Entartete Kunst Degenerate Art Exhibition from 1937. So I ended up writing my undergraduate thesis on the history of museum practices in the United States. And so, as we know, and as accustomed to museums today, have a very pedagogical mission. It's very didactic. You can't walk anywhere without a text or an audio or someone offering you an audio guide. And I was very curious and struck because I had just read this article by Adam Jollis about Stalin's talking museums in the early 20th century, and how actually a lot of the roots of this now current didactic mode of museum presentation has its origins in like propaganda techniques that Stalin used to indoctrinate his publics, and as well later the Third Reich and Hitler and would use to make an argument against Jewish artists and modern avant-garde art and Jewish art dealers. As I mentioned, the now famous 1937 show. So I was interested how we in the 20th century had this evolution of museum practices, which led me to reading a lot more of institutional critique and the work of Hans Haacke and Fred Wilson, who you see here in his famous early 1990s show at the Baltimore Historical Society, where he juxtaposed historical objects from their collection that brought about the fact that museums are in fact not objective institutions, but actually it's a very narrow ideological construct. And he really brought that in sharp relief or to the fore, that as a site of knowledge production and as a site for constructing narratives, there is an ideological bent. So people have trust and should have trust in public institutions like museums. However, we can critique and the public should be aware of, like, when you are in these spaces, it's safe to question them, or as an informed polity, we should question exhibitions and those who author those narratives. So there's a great quote there. I wish I had time to read you more, but the quote says, "Museums should be sites where one not only asserts things, but where there's also the possibility of questioning those very assumptions." So I kind of skipped past this first slide, but this is kind of just like a short list of what I was reading at the time, the years 2013, 2014, when I was a senior in college. So fast forward to through grad school and moving to New York, and like actually living in New York, and a significant site where a lot of moments of institutional critique happened across the decades. And so I have an image here from a project that was sponsored by the nonprofit, public art nonprofit Creative Time, where it was one of my very first internships in New York. So their institutional history is very dear to my heart, where Spencer Finch and Paul Ramirez Jonas staged kind of like a guerrilla audio guide for visitors who happened to be coming to the Met that day, that offered a counter narrative to what was being offered to the official narrative in the museum. And I have a map there because I was very interested in reading Carol Duncan and how her critique of the layout of Universal Survey museums like the Met is very much constructed along a conservative, Western-centric idea of the history of Western civilization, and kind of marginalizes the decorative arts as well as arts from the global South and elsewhere. And then, I'll skip ahead a little bit. So then things come full circle in 2019 when I visited the retrospective of Hans Haacke at the New Museum, which was like a really important moment of like, having matured a bit more and written a bit more and read a bit more, to actually encounter these, his work in this way was really special. And to tie it back to the Academy, and listening to discussions and listening to the speakers we had, like Karen Archie and Steinbergs and some others. I'm unfortunately forgetting their names at the moment, but it just brought back a flood of memories of like what initially drew me to the field of art history. And I think in the interest of time, I wanted to kind of highlight recent projects I've been working on where I feel like this interest or thread of institutional critique resurfaced. So I curated a show about historiography and how artists inject themselves into bodies of knowledge and archives and government systems to draw out again like the ideological nature or the not so innocent or not so unbiased positions that exist in these bodies. So that was like a moment of resurfacing. And then, as Mathilde mentioned, I've been working on this project with a Berlin and New York-based performance and media artist about the ideological nature of language, and how this project is meant to be a foil to Amazon's Alexa. So it's like a feminist chatbot that quotes famous feminist authors and art historians and critics, including Lucy Lippard and Bell Hooks and Audre Lorde and many others. So that was a great project to work on that reanimated, again, my interest in institutional critiques. And so I think I'll leave it there because I know that we still have Elisa who has to go. But anyway, thanks for coming along this intellectual journey that was very much, yeah, the Academy helped me retroactively or retrospectively look at a lot of these ideas and revisit these ideas and see kind of what I still think. And so yeah, thank you. That's pretty much it for me.
Thank you very much. I think it's yeah, very interesting because we are very lucky to have a group of participants who are academy living in different part of the world, different contexts, as we already mentioned, different languages. And what you focus here in your autobiography is how you learn from the context you lived in and how you've learned from institutions you visited, you worked in, and how it shapes your way of thinking also. And even if you are going in the directions you are interested in, anyway, I think we are all. It's also for me the something very interesting with AICA International, that we have 60 sections with people living in very different contexts, and so different. Our relation to art and to art history is shaped by our institutions. As I remember during the Congress, also when our Brazilian colleague saying that, you know, I don't have any contemporary art museums in my country, or also and that's in my city, in my country, of course not, but in the city she was living in, and it was a very important intervention, and I think that's for me linked to what you just mentioned, to have this occasion with AICA to share our context and to learn from that, from this diversity. Anyone want to? Or if not, I will give the floor now to Alisa, maybe, so we can, yeah, because it's already late. Maybe Alisa, we finish with your intervention today. Alisa Redko, you were a Ukrainian art critics based, and now American and Ukrainian art critics, sorry, and you're based in States, and you did your studies in Kharkiv, in Ukraine, in museum studies, and then you completed your postgrad studies in the Modern Art Research Institute in Kyiv. And now you are currently a PhD candidate, which is also something that we didn't discuss today, but that was also something very interesting. A lot of you are PhD candidates, so it's also something more important maybe today for art critics, for art criticism, to have this kind of this background or artistic profile. And you will share your thoughts about art and belongings nowadays, challenges.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well? Yes.
Yes.
Like I see, I have limited amount of time to present my speech, so I just will try to short it out. So, things inspired by 55th AICA Congress in Krakow, Poland. It's belonging and question how to balance and manage your belonging to art organization with like your personal points of view on the world conflicts, wars, and disasters. So my point is then me as a Ukrainian who is facing like war in my native country, and my personal belonging to my native land and my country is like so important right now for me. And I felt that during the Nikita Skadan speech as well, like when he was talking about Ukraine, it resonated with me, and I believe it resonated with million Ukrainians. And as art organization like AICA, when you have a people all around the world with different points of view, and you shared your like interest in art research and in art field, but at some point you don't share your values for your values, and you don't share your points of view to the war, for example, or conflicts. And my question, how to balance it, how to manage it inside this kind of organization? How do you deal with that? Just because for me as a Ukrainian, as a person who has that like collective trauma, it's sometimes unacceptable to like to be in the same organization with person, for example, who support Russia in this war. So my question is how do you manage that? How artists in modern world should manage that? Do they need to be independent, to not participate in any art communities, art organizations, just to avoid that communication with people who doesn't support their like personal point of view? Or it should be like just not spoken in it should not be spoken anyhow except like art related question and concern. So yes, my speech was longer, and I just I decided to shorten it because we have just 2 minutes yet till the end of
it's okay, we can go a little bit more. I mean, that's
okay. I mean, I'm sorry. Yes, so that's like how I said, I'm a person who like was impacted by that war, and my family is still in Ukraine, and they try to live there, they try to survive, and like for me at this point, I choose to be independent, other than belong, just because to avoid that controversially with political points of view. And I'm not sure if I do right, and I'm interested on what experience AICA members think of it. How do you balance between that, like between your own point of view and kind of national personal belonging?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's how I said. I just decided to make it shorter.
Yeah.
And
like
I will lose context.
Want to pick the floor? I know that you all made some short presentations, and as we mentioned, we can also work on the contribution for AICA Int. Jean Bundy, who is not here with us today, but really invite us to propose something from this AICA Academy session. So if you knew of, we can really work on that later, different kind of formats. Yeah, someone, Katie, Neva, it's Neva, sorry. Now, who is?
Hello, my name is Katie Deepwell.
Okay.
I used to be president of the British section of AICA. I think everybody has this problem because we all have to consider whether or not in our criticism we are supporting a nationalist or a national point of view. So we all have that problem. As an organization, when we come together, we also have to make choices about whether we are going to grandstand and make public announcements for or against ongoing conflicts. And that's a very tricky thing to do because it politicizes what is a association, really, rather than an organization. And we have had many conflicts, you know, that we could have made announcements about, or in support of, or against different national conflicts around the world. We have many African members. We've had the Balkans Wars, you know, in my lifetime. And we do have to think very carefully about those kinds of statements and what we do. So I just want to point out that everybody has this conflict, even if it seems at the most implicit level in the choices that we make about what we write about, whether we are reinforcing nationalist or partial or preferential points of view. It isn't just Ukrainians or the situation in Ukraine at the moment, which is truly abominable. And the same conflict also applies to Israeli and Palestinians, or, you know, in my country, Brexit. Am I going to align myself to the arguments about Brexit? No, you know, so we all have difficult choices to make in terms of national and nationalist debates.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Totally agree. Anyone wants to make a comment, or we can, or maybe it's time also to stop this discussion. I know it's already 1 hour and a half that we have this webinar. So maybe Anthony, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, just briefly, I think it was interesting, Lucy's observation or comment, which also speaks to the survey that Omar, Mary, and Ellie conducted about, you know, what does it say that so many art critics also hold university positions? So that kind of almost incentivizes a lot of younger critics to continue to pursue graduate education, which increasingly is expensive and is already an oversaturated market. So it's like there's this odd catch-22 phenomenon where we're trying to find stability by supplementing our income by getting the advanced degree, so we're eligible for a university teaching post. However, that involves going further into debt and into a job market that is already, you know, there's not a lot it can hold much more of. So I definitely think there needs, you know, we have to have creative solutions, and it's going to be on a, you know, country by country basis of how we find these solutions, but alternative sources of funding or reorganization of structures, or, I mean, I'm all in favor of radical proposals or, you know, a rethinking of the state of the field, because as it currently stands, you know, as we all know, it's just not very sustainable. And I don't think we need to continue to incentivize aspiring younger critics the incentive structure has to change. So I just wanted to kind of revisit that idea. But yeah.
Lucy?
Unmute. Sorry. It's funny because I did my PhD because then I wouldn't have to go and get a job, because we get paid to do them in Australia and they're also free. So like I wasn't getting any more, I wasn't getting myself in debt, and I was also putting off getting a job for 3.5 years, and I could write, I could get grants. I got like heaps of travel grants and things. You don't realize when you're doing a PhD that all that dries up very quickly once you finish your PhD. They like shower you, and there are all these opportunities for emerging critics and whatever, and then but I think one of the interesting things is what you were saying about change is, and this is been a discussion with I meet up with a group of freelancers freelance writers, and we all write about different things. So I'll tell you what, art critics are in a much better position than people who write about poetry. She gets paid the least, but you know, my flatmate, she writes about wine, she gets paid more than me an hour, or like, you know, per word. But what it makes it, what's really clear from our discussions is that while in Australia there are some pretty strict labour laws, so there are minimum wages. You know, if you don't pay people a minimum wage per hour, you know, they crack down on you. But there's no such thing for for writers, for freelance writers, for artists and things like that. And I think that would you know, that makes all the difference. I think that legally no one has to pay you a minimum amount to write. So it's like, you know, how little can we pay? And, you know, there's the 2 articles that I've written recently. One paid me $100 and the other paid me $1,250. Same amount of words, just different commissioning bodies. I mean, go figure. I'm not writing for the people who pay me $100 anymore, but yeah, it's there's no legal, you know, there aren't any, yeah, there are no laws like there are for like hourly wage roles. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of discussion during the academy about the very diverse situation of PhD in art theory and art history in different parts of the world, where we realized that there's big differences between us, and sometimes very surprisingly, because some countries that doesn't seem to be supportive in art world are supportive in the PhD students more than others. So I think there's could be also part of a survey, of a next survey also, because it's very interesting. I mean, I learned a lot. We're discussing with you all. So yeah, just brief comments. Katie, you maybe.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's very interesting from your survey that the majority of people have academic posts. I have an academic post now. I'm a professor. So the squeeze on not getting paid is not just in the commercial art world, in journalism or blogging. The squeeze on not getting paid is also in academia. I wrote 2 major articles on art criticism for Arts. I didn't get paid anything. And there is a whole series of academic journals on art criticism and in art history about art criticism and in curatorial studies now, but nobody gets paid. And the only money I ever got, really serious money for my writing, was for royalties for books that I produced, and also for catalogue essays from private dealers as opposed to public museums. So the unevenness of the stakes have continued throughout my career because I chose not to write commercial journalism. So, you know, art historians rely, or art critics rely on academic positions to support their ability to write art criticism. And they are called upon to teach art criticism indirectly. But the other problem that we have, or I have structurally, is I teach art students. I cannot teach art criticism to art students. You know, I talk about art criticism all the time to them, but I cannot teach a course on art criticism because there's no space in the curriculum for such a project. That's my 2 penny worth.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Susanna?
Yes, thank you.
We conclude. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. It's very difficult to have a global conclusion, as everybody says, about art criticism in the world. And for example, I have noticed this question of language, which is very important because we work with language anyway. Language is our essence to communicate. And it's very interesting to know that there were always had been two positions in the world. One, it was the global or open culture, and the other was particular communities with his own specific cultures, which it was called regionalism at that moment. But what happens in different countries is real that, for example, in Latin America, we were open always to English and other cultures. And in Europe, we have sometimes the opposite phenomenon. That is an answer some of these we are talking about. But in the practice of art criticism, where I never had a school about that, so it was not a school of art criticism, it was a school of history of art or literature, and then you have to mix all that in your practice itself. And the idea is what happens between this relationship between a practice that is individual and the social. What are our rights in the social world and in the work? So we are, AICA is not a syndicate, or it's not really one institution that will fight for our rights like writers. But anyway, AICA had established, I know that in France, we had a table of how much a table that says how much we should be paid and how much it is our right. But anyway, we cannot act we didn't act up to here, or we cannot act in a political way to make, to establish exactly comment dit, une façon de travailler organique. Ça veut dire, ça n'existe, it does not exist like in other branch in the social world. So, and that is something, it had not been a solution up to now. I don't know if that is the role of AICA International. So it's an open question what to do about our social condition in art criticism. That's the big deal. I don't know if I was clear.
That might sound. Thank you very much for your comments and proposal. I think we have to continue on these issues. Of course, it's our responsibility also for AICA International. And Ellie, now who raised their hand? Dora, I think, and we will conclude after this intervention because it's already late. And I see someone, but I don't see. I just see a name, Dora Derado.
Hi, yes, Dora Dorado Biljanovic. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes,
we
lovely.
Don't see you, but we hear you.
Okay, sorry, yeah, I can't turn on my camera right now. I'm with a baby. So, but yeah, I have my finger on the mute button just in case. I'll be very brief. I wanted to just support what all of the other speakers have said so far, especially what Susanna said just recently about, unfortunately, there not being, I would say, enough standards of payment for art critics. And of course, AICA isn't a syndicate. I don't think anyone here really expects you to voice our rights in that sense. But I think this is reflexive of the general stance among the broader population, but also institutional and governmental bodies that don't really see either art history or arts in general, or the humanities in a broader sense, as being socially, culturally significant enough, perhaps. At least this is my general sense that I get. I'm from Croatia, so this is my general just kind of feeling about things, just based on the funds that art projects get, be it art criticism related specifically or art related broadly. This might be an issue that is, well, much broader than we can cover here, but I just wanted to voice my opinion here and just give support to everyone else here that's struggling as a freelance writer, art critic, or wine writer, or whatever else you might be doing on the side to support yourself. So thank you.
Thank you. I feel it's very important to feel this supportive atmosphere between us. I think it's how we can go on. Lisbeth, I see that you raised your hand. Maybe we can
Yes,
give you.
I just would like to say this was a very important discussion. The issues, the topics you raised, I think that we must follow, thinking on them. And I've been remembering, I've been thinking about the feelings and the discussions that AICA had in the very first moments of its foundation. And it's very interesting that those topics, if you study the first congresses, the discussions, you find exactly these topics we have raised today. This is a very interesting point to think about. And I think we should continue the discussion, and we should also study a little bit what happened in the past to understand better our situation and our position. Just that, I want to congratulate with all the participants of the AICA Academy in Krakow, and to congratulate Mathilde for organizing together with Małgorzata and Arkadiusz in Poland the events. And I hope to have this recording in the YouTube to spread the information about what happened in this webinar to all the sections, all the national sections. So thank you, Mathilde, for organizing this webinar, and thank you all to have participated in this event in Poland and had come to this discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisbeth. I want to thank also very much Manuel Lambion, who is already here, and Dominique Tusowski, who were very helpful also to organize this academy session. And it was a very collaborative moment. So I think I want to thank you, everyone. And as you mentioned, Lisbeth, the issue of bringing a different generation of art critics during a congress was really because we think that AICA International, we have a lot to learn from different generations, because we know different contexts in the world, but we know different moments in the art world, and we can learn a lot from these specific moments and maybe have some productive solutions to work on in the future to help and to find a way to bring more solidarity between us, and find a way to fight the precarity that we all face. So thank you very much. We can, if those of you who are not already in the group of AICA Academy, it's a very open group. So if any one of you wants to be included and in the next steps, as I mentioned, we will publish an issue for AICA IMAG, which is an IMAG published on our website by Jean Bundy. So if any one of you wants to be part of it, please write to AICA International or to myself. I'm just writing my email on the chat, and we will work also. We'll find a way to continue this important survey. Also, what is economic conditions, so I hope that we'll work on that in the future of AICA very soon with you all. So thank you very much, and the webinar will be online on our YouTube channel in a few days. So we will forward you the link, and thanks everyone for this very interesting session, and see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.